my vice. Man up from Mars, he tripping, I put that on guard. I got the digits, but I am not calling. Wizard at night, this be that forum. I'm shooting stack with that. Sunshine after that. Shooting stack with that. Sunshine after that. So yeah, you know, I had a conversation with her, but it's like the signals is always crossed. I mean, like, I say yes, cause she asked me to say yes. And then she's like, I didn't want you to say yes. I wanted you to understood that a yes was required to answer the question. I was like, what?
We in mourning today, some of us. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the season premiere of Stacked After Hours, The Spot. I am your host, Natalie Cosby, and welcome to the show. Yes, for Grown Folks Talk. It has been an intense 2024. We have had conversations. We were trying to figure out when we were going to come back, and I figured this is the right time to come back, thinking it was going to be celebratory. And instead, it's a little bit more reflective. So tonight we are talking to a panel of brothers and how they weighed their vote this election. So we really want y'all's intake and input in some in your thoughts. Tonight we are switching it up. Miss Dr. Maria D. Longoria is here to kind of help me weigh in with these brothers on this conversation. And when I think about what I was watching last night unfold, and I was like, oh, this is not feeling good or looking good. Last night I reflected back, like, how did I feel when I first heard her name being announced as Joe Biden's replacement? And I was like, I was so excited, but I was optimistically a little bit like, I don't know about this one, y'all.
You were excited. I knew I didn't want to vocalize it or verbalize it, but I knew it was the wrong choice in terms of winnability. I knew that it was going to be an uphill battle if it did happen. But I didn't say anything because I wanted to be optimistic. I still got out there. I supported. I did what I could in terms of donations, in terms of working with folks and trying to keep the momentum going, right? But I know the history of this country, and I know where we're at, and I knew that this country was not ready for a Black woman or a woman of color, however you wanted to, whatever category you want to put it.
Yeah.
I knew they weren't ready for it. This country, as racial as it is, it's also very gendered. And when you combine those two, that misogynoir, right? That gender racial intersection is even worse. And, I have other comments, but I'll save it for when we get in with the brothers. So,
yeah. Before we get into that, I agree. I feel like I think it's very nuanced. What I saw was very, very nuanced in a lot of things that they're about race and sex, but other things that people claim people hid behind or really not well informed, so on and so forth. So let's introduce our panel and really dive into deep and unpack a whole lot of this ish. I'm gonna be clean because we got a good brother, Reverend. All the brothers are good, but I want to keep it. I'm trying to be, because I want to curse, girl. I want to curse people out right now today, but we gonna go with it. So let's introduce our panel. brothers. I'm thank you all for being here. And I want to also say I feel like brothers were very misrepresented in this conversation throughout these last 10 or whatever, 100 plus days. So I want to introduce our Kamala people, Whitney Thomas, Maurice Nicholson, Whitney, and we've had Whitney on the show, Maurice, and Dr. Kevin Cosby. Thank you, from Simmons Bible College. And then the folks who decided to sit this one out, Henry McCormick, and the brother who is in the victory stance, J. Doug. So I want to pose this to all brothers on the panel. And I want to start with Maurice, as a brother from Brooklyn. How did you feel when you first heard she was the candidate? Honestly.
I didn't think she was set up for success. If you think about the timing, she was told that she was going to be the nominee probably like 3.5 months in before the election. I didn't know much about her. I didn't know much about her legislative achievements. I actually didn't know what she really stood for. And I thought it was a little concerning that you would, for lack of a better term, you put this flaming bag of crap in her lap, like, hey, come save democracy 3 months out, and you're a Black woman. The country's never nominated or elected a Black woman, never elected a woman. And it was kind of a lot to hand to somebody who we were very unfamiliar with.
Henry, what about you? When you heard her name?
Honestly, for me, it didn't really matter. The results was going to be the same as a collective whole for us as a people. So it didn't matter. It didn't matter if the Democrat won it or the Republican won it. We were going to be in the same position, whoever the president was going to be. So who was the nominee, and whether it was the Dwayne The Rock Johnson or if it was LeBron James, we would still be in the same situation we is today as we have been for hundreds of years now.
Okay, I like the Democlan and the Republican. Okay, all right. Next, Whitney, as a brother in a swing state, how did you feel about her?
Well, I mean, I was concerned for a bunch of reasons because, first of all, I thought it was way too late. I thought that all throughout my experience with her as a vice president, she just never exuded much gravitas. She just seemed like she was always just laughing and dancing. And I don't know, I didn't see much from her to be impressed to think she should be the person running for president. But I mean, my personal feeling was I thought they should have just did a weekend in Bernie's with Biden and like just got him through to election on Adderall and cocaine and whatever to get him ready for these debates as best they could and just send him out there, because I think he was their best shot at that point. To put her in that position was not, I don't know. I mean, Trump's now won twice and he's the only person that ran twice against women. So, you know.
Before I go into Jay, Kevin, I know you lead such a large community of Black folks in West and Louisville. When that was announced, how did you even, for yourself, but how did you even start to approach it? And how did your parishioners feel?
I think many of my parishioners, because of the lack of political education, were caught up in identity politics, and it made them feel good on an emotional level. But in terms, if politics is about getting something for your vote, it is reciprocity, it is something for something. I think of Andre Lordy, who said you cannot dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Mm-hmm. So I just did not have much hope or optimism that all the Republicans was going to have a radical black agenda that would result in the closing of so much economic and other disparities. So I did not believe much in it.
Mm. It was so funny, Jay and Jay Doug. Everybody acted like they were really upset. The whole Trump camp. So is that how you felt when you heard her name being announced?
No, ma'am. That's not how I felt at all. I was ecstatic. Kamala Harris had proven to already be a loser in the 2020 primaries where she was trying to get with the Democratic, and she got voted out. They told her that they did not want her. So for her to step up again to get a double dose of rejection, I already knew it was going to be a landslide. And then considering everything that the country have been through throughout these 4 years, I knew that Trump had more than enough momentum to win because we done suffered enough.
So I have a question. So did we suffer at all under Trump?
Not that I recall. We were living a life. I'm ready to get back to it. I'm turning. I'm like, yo, it's gonna be good times.
So how were you living life? What were the things that made you say that made you feel that you were living the life? Besides,
we had more going for ourselves as a country. We wasn't taking care of everybody and their mama. Israel, Ukraine, illegal immigrants. We became a unlimited credit card for the illegal immigrants, and I feel like a lot of those resources that we were giving away could have been put in the country, like they say, America first. So we could have been putting ourselves first for 4 years, but we've been taking care of everybody and their mama, so-called refugees and all this junk.
Okay, so it sounds like your one of your primary agendas was immigration.
Well, immigration, overspending, too many, like my man said, identity politics, transgender awareness, just a whole bunch of mess that didn't mean anything. 4 years and we didn't get nothing done. If Trump was in office done 4 years, we would at least had a wall up by now. You know what I mean?
Okay, jump. Y'all can respond to Whitney.
Can I go first?
Yes, you can.
Please.
Please.
Trump didn't really do anything different than what anybody else did. He didn't achieve anything. I don't know what you're referring to as far as having it good. I mean, I do recognize that the politics of the alphabet and immigration were two areas that caused a lot of Democratic voters like myself problems because I think they put too much energy into those areas that don't really do anything for, say, our community. I don't know what LGBT platform does for blacks in North Philly. I don't know what immigration does for folks in Brooklyn. It was too many things that didn't do anything for the people that they wanted votes from, and I think that was a mistake. I mean, I still think you had to vote for her because Trump is just destroyer of worlds at this point. So I don't know how anybody could seriously vote for him and think that there was anything good that would possibly come from it. But I mean, I personally look at a lot of this as people have missed the plot. I don't think that people understand how America works. I don't think people understand American business. I don't think they understand the economy. So they're basically all wrong at the wrong people. They're mad at the wrong people. Like America is being robbed, basically. America is a country where monopolies are basically taking over almost every sector of American economy, from eyeglasses to books to batteries to video games to pork, beef, chicken. If you look at almost any area in American politics, there's a monopoly in place, like Ticketmaster if you want to go to a concert. And that's the reason why prices are so high. So we're not currently dealing with inflation. Like you kept hearing people say, oh, it's the economy, oh, inflation, food costs are too high, gas is too high. And in almost area like gas, for example, it's collusion taking place between a small number of companies. In the case of gas, the producers of gas in Texas and OPEC colluding right now and being sued by the Biden justice system to deal with said collusion, even though Exxon just bought the company that was colluding with OPEC, a company called Pioneer out of Texas, and now Exxon just bought them for $30 billion. So all over the country, they're taking all the money out of the hands of the many and putting them into the hands of the few. And that's the real problem. So everything that people are mad about is everything's too high, not enough jobs, and the jobs that people have, the wages are too low. Those are like the three horsemen of the apocalypse, basically, in America. And people are mad at the wrong people. The reason why that's happening is administrations like Trump and the Republicans deregulate industries, and they help monopolies form because they're basically a party of corporations and the rich. I mean, a party of the oligarchy, which is the United States. And they allow these things to happen, which is why this country was moving that way anyway. So 4 years from now, people are still going to be mad because all those same things are going to still be in place.
So
Brother Whitney,
Mhm.
and just want to throw this out there to your point that you just want to throw out there, and I don't want to get off the initial subject, but at what point in American history has that not been the case? Like, if anything, monopoly has been the American way since its creation.
Well, monopolies have really taken off in America in the last 40 years or so. In the last 40 years, 35% of all factory jobs went away. In the last 40 years, 35%. Because at once upon a time, you did have steel factories in Pittsburgh. You did have, battery factories in Wisconsin. Like, use that as an example.
So
Energizer just bought Rayovac, and then they consolidated, and then they fired everybody that worked at Rayovac. 600 employees are now about to be out of work because what they did was they bought Rayovac. Now they're just Energizer and Duracell are the two companies that represent 80% of the battery market. And now in that situation, they don't compete with anybody, so they raise prices and they cut costs and they laid off employees. That's happening now at a pace that was never like it was in the past.
But that's general economics, isn't it?
That's economics that's unsustainable. There's no way to sustain one or two companies.
Gentlemen, hold on. Go ahead, Whitney. Finish your point, and then I want to.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example.
Quick.
Pork.
10 seconds.
Iowa is basically the pork state, right? Iowa used to have 45,000 farms. Iowa now has about 4,000 farms. Iowa produces way more pigs now than they ever used to because now they farm pigs like chickens. So now they have what they call CAFOs, where they actually farm hundreds and thousands of pigs in these giant like warehouse type structures like chickens. And they've ran every other supplier of pigs out of business. So that hasn't always been the case. That's a relatively new thing where just a small number of companies represent the lion's share of all the business. And unfortunately, what they do in almost every case is they raise costs and they cut wages and they cut jobs. That's the problem in America right now.
Right. So I think the other thing is, it's just like, I think also who, as we talk about this, right, and we start to really unpack the economics of the election, I think the funny thing is like nobody looked at that. Everything that you said, Whitney, probably went in one ear and out
because and it's partly their fault because they never told that story.
Right.
I don't know what I never knew what the Democratic message was. They never their message was don't vote for Trump.
Yes.
Trump sucks.
Yes.
That was their message. That's not a way to win an election.
Right. Go ahead. Maurice, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the premise of this conversation, for getting us together tonight, which is to understand that Black men had some fundamental barrier to accepting Kamala Harris and her message.
Exactly.
I think what you're hearing here is, hey, this is beyond Kamala Harris. Like at the end of the day, as Brother Whitney was laying out, the economic situation was such that disaffected, undereducated white men said, somebody is taking away our benefits. We're losing status and we're losing economic power. We don't like that. And then the folks on the left and the progressive left never really addressed that, right? And so what Trump did was played an identity game, like you want to be with us, we're winners, and all those people are bad and they're taking from you. And we try to have a policy conversation. We never had a full policy conversation. So, the question is, hey, look, at the end of the day, 70-something% of Black men voted for Kamala Harris.
Yes.
She was handed a flaming bag of crap. She was asked to do the impossible given that set of circumstances that she was handed. If you ask me who I'm mad at, right, I got 4 people I'm mad at today.
Who
Right?
are you mad at, Maurice?
I'm mad at Mitch McConnell because we had an opportunity to impeach President Trump back in January 2021. He said, hey, there's remedies in the courts, in the criminal courts. I'm mad at the DNC, particularly Donna Brazile, when she undercut Bernie Sanders, who wanted to address these issues with the working class, both the white working class and the Black working class, who are falling prey to a lot of the stuff that Brother Whitney was laid out. Obama did not recognize the threat being posed by the Tea Party, and it was something that needed to be done years ago. I've seen this in data. I do work in misinformation and disinformation. And there was something that was showing up on the radar 10, 12 years ago that we should have been addressing. We didn't. We let it fester. So those are 3 folks I'm quite frustrated with. And then the last person I'm frustrated with was Joe Biden. Because at the end of the day, Joe Biden should not have been the bridge to the new generation. I mean, he didn't serve as a bridge to the new generation, and he turned over the reins way too late. Jesus himself couldn't have done this. People know Trump. People did not know Kamala Harris. I supported her, and I think she overperformed, but she was handed something that was just impossible to tackle.
So, it's always interesting that people say that she not that she overperformed, but a lot of people they blame Joe Biden because they believe either he should have stepped down, he should have been a one-term president.
As
he promised, which he did not. And I feel like he was failing way earlier than anybody wanted to speak upon. And I think the powers that be knew, and they were just like, okay, we're going to ride this out. And I'm trying to understand as we start to think about this, and a lot of blame is going to be placed on her and her election. Why, did Black men see something that Black women didn't see? Are we just blind? And we want to believe that this country is just. And people said they did set her up for failure. But what did the powers that be in the Democratic Party? What could they have done different? And I'm going to have Kevin start with this one.
I think that we have to look at the petty Black bourgeoisie that is a part of corporate media. H. Ralph Brown, back in the 60s, said the danger of Blacks entering into the system is that we go into the system to change it, but the opposite happens. Instead of us changing the system changes us, and we go into the system and we get co-opted into the system, and we become shields for either the neoliberals in the Democratic Party or the neo-fascists in the Republican Party, in which neither one of them have our interest at heart. Until we can have Black people in the room who are not so giddy about being in the room and remember the reason why they are in the room. And the reason why they are in the room is that they will be in a position to bring back into the masses of Black people something tangible and something quantifiable. I have an acronym, and I'm the preacher in the midst, but let me go ahead and give my acronym, and that is: all we get is symbols, holidays, images, and tokens. We get symbols, we get holidays like Juneteenth, we get images of superficial Black and white togetherness, and we get tokens of positions of Black people in positions without power and status, without strength. And until we can get some tangibles and some quantifiables, and that is money in Black people's pockets, and especially in the pockets of the Black masses, who, to a great degree, have been forgotten. It's interesting to me that, at least in terms of the symbolism, how the Trump could co-opt the symbol of a sanitation truck when that was the symbol of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, when he was assassinated April the 4th, 1968. He was there with sanitation workers, and now Trump has co-opted that. So while Trump is talking about black men working, you got the Democrats with Cardi B talking about twerking. We don't want to talk about twerking. We need to be talking about working.
So you're talking about pandering. We were pandered to, and we've been pandered to. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that going on with the Roland Martins, the D.L. Hugleys, they basically became shills for the party, and that anybody black who said, they had any expectations of Harris in the party were shouted down by this group, Steve Harvey's, that, I don't know if they're getting a check in the background. I don't know if they were waiting for a connect if she won the race. I don't know what they were looking for as far as compensation, but they were in the way. Because every time somebody asks something about tangibles and what would you actually do for our community, they were jumping out of the gym to tell people to shut up and be quiet and vote. And they helped set up this dynamic where there was like no expectation from her for us. And you can't win elections just by saying the other guy sucks. It's just not a way to win an election. And as bad as Trump is, there's too many white folks out there that don't see it the way you see it. So if your whole platform is he's terrible, then there's people out there who don't think that, and so you basically brought nothing to the table.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question based on some of the things you said, Dr. Cosby, and a comment that Henry made earlier? So when people are colonized and then they are freed, they tend to step into the structure that the colonizer leaves. And that's what happened in this country, because this country wasn't built for us, right? The laws, the Constitution, the creation was to suppress us. So when we were freed, we tried to prove how American we were and how good we were and how we could fall in line. How then do you suggest, as Black folks still in this country, we try to move something forward? Because it's still the same structure.
What you need to do is to find out what Black people did out of enslavement when the Civil War ended in April of 1865, and the Reconstruction period began from 1865 until the eve of 1954 with the Brown decision. And let me tell you what we did. We built our own institutions. We can reconstitute the 7 historic Black institutions, our Black colleges, our Black schools, our Black businesses, our Black media, our Black fraternal and sorority organizations, Black families, Black faith institutions, whether they're churches or mosques, that has a Black agenda. Until we can rebuild our institutions, we went from segregation to desegregation to integration to disintegration. The problem is that, as James Baldwin said, we integrated ourselves into a burning house. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that got his own. We need our own.
Can I jump on that real quick? I would say that for years I've said that we're doing it wrong. For years, and I have a lot of friends, maybe a couple that are watching right now, that believe in the American political system. Now I vote, but I don't believe in this system. I believe in what they did in the civil rights movement is what we should be doing now, which is boycotts. Our position right now should be financial. We should be collectively saying, all right, as a group, we won't buy iPhones unless Apple hires more employees, unless more folks at Apple get higher, level positions. Use your economic power to dictate to businesses who you patronize, to get what you want. This political system I've constantly said, American politics is a game of 3-card Molly. Like, it's a hustle. People have said, religion is the opiate of the masses. I'm constantly saying that politics is the opiate of the American people. It makes American people think that they're participating, that it's a democracy. But there's nothing about this country that's democracy. This country is an oligarchy. It's why pharmaceuticals cost so much, because every group in every industry controls that industry, meaning the Mercks and the Pfizers fund the politicians to get the laws and bills and whatever situations passed they need for pharmaceuticals. Oil companies do it for oil companies. In the last year, $4 billion was spent lobbying. $4 billion getting what they wanted out of whatever that situation was. So
Whitney,
you can't vote your way out of that.
Right. Go ahead, Marnice. But go ahead, Marnice, and I'll ask my next question.
You know, it's interesting, right? I mean, the saying that I always go back to is like, power concedes nothing without a demand, right? And to the extent that we don't have economic power, it's hard to make demands, right? Like when we wanted to keep Claudine Gay in place, they were not concerned with what the Black audience thought because we give no money to Harvard, right? So there's no consequence. I'm reading a book called The Jewish State, which is about the founding of Israel. It's an 89-page pamphlet that sort of lays out how you got there. And the one thing that strikes me when I read this book is how thoughtful they were about acting in a coordinated fashion to get land, to take care of poor Jews, to help them move, to put in place structures to enable poor Jews to be subsidized by rich Jews and to build and establish businesses in Israel. Is a coordination and a thoughtfulness that, you know, Marcus Garvey didn't have. Some of it is because we didn't have the resources, but you really, I think, until you start being really, really mindful and not happy with the little bit of crumbs we're getting from the table today and say, hey, we need to really, we can't move forward unless we all move forward at the same time. And therefore the folks who have to be very planful and have to be very thoughtful about how we bring everybody along. Because to Dr. Longoria's point, the system ain't built for us. Doesn't matter who's in power. And so we have to actually think in a very close, supportive way. If the system works for us in a moment, that's great. But if you don't have that foundation, we're going to be challenged.
The problem with our group, real quick.
Hold on. I want to bring in the younger, because we do have a younger. Go ahead, Henry, because I feel like you are of a younger generation, and you too, J-Dub, because y'all completely, I feel like y'all see the world very differently versus our older brothers here. But go ahead, Henry.
Well, no, I'm not going to say that I see it differently because, you know, if we're going to lean on the Garvinism of my thought process, I would 100% agree with the older brothers. However, as much as I agree with them, I don't believe in them not doing their part by withholding their vote as well. Because the most power that we can have, right, is we talk about boycotting events. If we would boycott the election, that would demonstrate to the parties in power the power that we have in that political process. As well as with that, is we don't, the agenda that we want them to create for us, we have not forced them by whatever means that we do have to create an agenda that has our best interests at heart. As we talked about, it said the black bourgeoisie, we put people in power who don't have our best interests at heart. I mean, we can think about the people who we, whether it's the Cardi B's or the Jay-Z's and Beyonce's, the people that are a reflection of our community and our culture aren't the type of people who have our best interests at heart, that have no agenda for they're people that put them in that place outside of being a visionary representation of blackness, right? And that's where a lot of the stemming of all these issues become, is that and I would say that we haven't demanded something be done for us as a collective whole of a people in many years, and we have this ideology of independency, right? Of course, the American way of you being able to choose, and you're a part of the group, and we're all this one. And we haven't been that way since the dawn of time. And I think we need to get away from trying to be like our white masters, and understand that we are our own people, and we have to operate just as the Jews do, as the American Jews do, as the American Indians did, as the Asian.
Well, I don't. Let me jump in. I would never want to operate as another group group who never had the same experience that we had.
Wait, hold on.
They didn't come here on slave ships, so they operate differently. That's comparing black people to Jews is almost insane. Because
I wanted to get J Doug's point of view because I feel like it is very different. Like J Doug, as you listen to what is being said, like coming together, so on and so forth, you basically broke from majority of how black men voted. So my question to you is, based on everything you hear, are you in agreement with that? Do you believe in our power as one? Or do you feel like Trump, I can connect to Trump. I believe in what he's saying. I'm trying to understand that black Trump voter.
Well, I 100% don't agree with none of what these black men on this panel said. I really don't listen to too much of what these older. No disrespect to these guys. I'm sure they good brothers.
You're a Trump voter. You gotta be kidding me that you think we should be listening to you.
Let him finish with me.
I done heard you waffle for about 10 minutes.
This is what I'm talking about.
You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Go ahead.
Like I'm gonna say, I don't listen to nothing these older black men say. They haven't done nothing since the civil rights movement but create baby mamas, sell dope, and follow.
You invited him on this show.
I can't say anything. Let me finish. I didn't interrupt you, brother.
Listen to what you're saying.
You don't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt you, though. You said a whole bunch of junk.
Young brother spew his
knowledge.
Let him finish.
Let him finish. Go ahead.
Like I say, these older black men have done nothing since the civil rights movement but create baby mamas, sell dope, and follow black women to the T. They didn't lead by example. They didn't take control of the community. And that's why we're dealing with this stuff that we're dealing with today. And now they want to get on social media after 50 years of destroying their community and talk like they got some sense. I try to talk like they got some sense.
So hold up. You're saying that the vote for Trump basically silenced black women's independence and black feminism? Is that what you're saying right now?
No, the vote for Trump was just the best option. See, we have to get past we wanted a woman, and I'm pretty sure you wanted a woman just to feel good. It wasn't no other reason why you want her to be president.
Can you explain Trump and economics? Do you know Trump's economics? Do you know anything about Trump?
You gotta let him finish. I know y'all have.
I understand that we wanted Kamala Harris to be the president just to feel good. Same thing with Obama.
Whoever. Go ahead.
Just to feel good. But, everybody's not into feel good politics. And as far as like us getting something done as a black community, it's just not going to happen because we just don't have the same mindset for all of us. Some of us want to go out here and be ghetto. Some of us want to go out here and be righteous. Some of us want to go out here and, be business. It's all different type of perspective.
Do you even have any successful friends? Do you have any successful people in your universe?
I have a follow-up for J Doug.
Go ahead. One more question. What made you vote for him in the first place? What makes it so great about?
He has no idea.
Well, I was looking at Trump. I was like a non-voter my first time, but I heard everybody like, yo, Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is bad. And I had to really get into politics at that time to see why people were saying Trump was so bad. They were trying to say grab about a vagina and all this junk. But then when I started looking into the things that he wanted to do, like bring jobs back to America, start getting oil, digging for oil here in America, get these illegals out of here so we can start getting the resources for ourselves and things like that. I said, yo, Trump doing something more. And then I looked at what the Democrats were doing all these years, and they ain't do nothing, especially Obama. You ain't do nothing but let the gays come in and do what they wanted to do. Kamala wasn't finna do nothing. Joe Biden sitting up here talking about Transgender Awareness Day. And I'm like, if we talk,
where are you from? Are you from like Mississippi or something? Where are you from?
I gotta be about where I'm from. I'm just telling you.
I'm wondering
what did I say that did not happen, brother?
Hold on.
It don't make any sense because you have next.
What did I say? Did Obama usher the gay agenda in?
Time out. time out. I can't. We ain't gonna get nowhere if everybody's talking over each other.
Where are you from?
Maria.
Let the moderators.
About it, because you want to use that against me.
Where are you from?
So,
Go ahead, Maria.
so I have a question based on a couple of things that were said, right? Because there was reference to Jay-Z, Cardi B. There's a reference to having baby mamas and not representing the community. And so my question is, how much do you think this election and the people that were tapped to speak for Black people, not talking about Obama, played into stereotypes of Black people that influenced the vote?
Too much. You had Megan Thee Stallion booty popping at the convention. It was just too much junk going on. They should have been more professional, talked about the issue, which they didn't have no issue to talk about because they wasn't finna do anything. So that's why they was filibustering. You had Obama get up there shaming Black men if we don't want to go along with
how did that in particular? How did the
Kamala.
shaming? How did Obama's, because that's one of the things we were talking about earlier. How did Obama chiding Black men affect people's I guess participation in the election or their motivation to participate?
It didn't affect people like me none, because we all figured that Obama probably allegedly get on his knees in front of men, so we don't take him.
Okay. Hold on. Okay.
And I'll try to say it as respectfully as possible.
You can't say that and be respectful at all.
Yeah,
But that's the rumor. You heard the letter that he wrote to like some guy where he was like, you wanted to do something with a man?
Hold on.
Did that not happen?
Can we actually talk
He wrote a letter about he want to be with a man.
Henry, go ahead.
Henry,
can we actually talk about substance? Because I feel like too much of the stuff we're talking about is hearsay, if less, right? Or trying whatever you can find on social media. So I don't really care who voted for who in that instance. But if you're going to represent someone with a vote that dictates the power they have for you, or has indicators of the powers they can create for your life within that their span, and could affect it for longer than that. What I would say to you, brother, is can you give me something of substance that well, any party, not Democratic or Republican, from a policy aspect that is going to impact your direct life on a day-to-day basis? So I want you, if you can articulate to me what policy that any party, I don't care, pick one, that's going to impact your life, negative or positively. Please articulate that to me. That's what I would like from you.
Oh, me specifically? Yeah. Yes. Getting these illegals out of here, therefore.
Policy. Tell me a policy that's in place right now, because I can tell you right now that the Republicans actually have a direct, I would say, a manual that's in place to tell you exactly what they're going to do. But I want you as an individual to articulate to me an actual policy outside of just saying immigrants or the wall and stuff like that, the stuff you can see on social media, but things that have been done in place that it's going to directly affect your life.
I mean, I hustle, so it's nothing going to affect my life. I got my life in order. I'm not out here depending on the government.
So then why Trump?
I just told you. He's for the thing that I'm for. Getting these illegals out of here. He's not with all this LGBT junk. He's
So basically you're talking about kitchen table issues. Go ahead. Maurice. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think, look, J. Doug, you make a point that during the convention, we had too many of these celebrities and we didn't have enough people talking about real substantive issues. I actually might concede part of that, right? Because I think that was a point. We knew that our side was losing with working class, the middle of the country, white men and folks of color, and we didn't do anything with that. When it gets to the policy thing, I think folks on our side, folks who are voting for Kamala, are about policy, and I think people who selected Trump are about identity politics, LGBTQ, whatever, immigrants. They can talk about that in abstract, but they won't look at what was the immigrant flow during Trump's time, and what did he do when he was president? And did it actually get worse, or was it the same? And did he block policies to fix things, right? So there are folks who are grabbing onto identity things, like my man J. Doug, and that's okay. You know, you pick who you want to be like. And then there's people who start to talk about real policy stuff.
Well, real quick, I want to ask that question. What policies did Kamala have that was so grandiose?
Actually, didn't she have she had policies or
what?
Talking points.
What policy? I didn't want, he asked me for one. I want to hear one policy that didn't allow giving away America's money to people who didn't earn it or didn't deserve it. What policy did she have?
I'm okay with that question.
She lied and talked about, oh, I'm finna reverse the abortion. That's a lie. She was gonna do that. They would have did it. She ain't got
Can I say this? Can I say this? That I affirm what J. Doug is saying.
Yes.
And that is that I think I'm dividing what he's saying into two areas. First of all, I think we can agree that he's being descriptive, and his description, we can disagree on his prescription, but you cannot disagree on his description of the party that we have invested our vote in, our energy in, that we have received absolutely nothing in return for our vote. I mean, no one can dispute that. And in terms of, and also I think that J. Doug is absolutely right, that we voted for Obama and we voted for Kamala to a great degree because of how it made us feel psychologically. But politics is not about feeling good. It's about, Harold Laswell at Yale gave the classic definition of politics. He said, it's who gets what, when, and where. Politics is about tangibles, getting something in your pocket. It is not about all this symbolism. And
can I explain something about black politics or politics in general?
No such thing.
The problem with politics as it relates to black people is in the United States, any politics that would help black people would be considered radical, which no party has the political will to be radical in the favor of black folks. The other problem is most of the problems that black people face in America are structural problems. They're not really political problems. They're structural problems. The schools are funded by taxpayer dollars. Black neighborhoods were redlined 100 years ago. So poor people live in black neighborhoods, so there's a smaller tax base. Unless you change how schools are funded based on the tax of that community, schools will suck in black neighborhoods. But that's structural. The police is structural. The police don't answer to any organization. The police are their own entity.
But the structure,
that's structural.
The structure is created by public policy. I mean,
it is, but it won't be changed by public policy because most of the issues that you're talking about, there's no political will on any side and in any area to deal with those kinds of things.
Because, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing except by demand.
You're right, which is why I say if you want to address it, you got to address it outside of politics.
Hold on, we can't have everybody. Whitney, let him finish.
We get the politics we deserve because of the lack of demand.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is to get what we actually need would be considered radical, and there's no will to do that, in which case we have to go outside of the typical political approach, which is why I talk about things like boycotting. Boycotting is what got a lot done in the civil rights movement. It wasn't a vote, it was a boycott. You have to use whatever power you actually have to say, all right, if we spend X amount of dollars in this area or in that area, we're going to withhold those dollars until we get what we want. Or if you look at banking and how banks deal with black people, because they're still redlining in different ways that they'll never, make aware. Large banks like Wells Fargo are sued all year long, all over the United States for discrimination. That's always happening. It's going to continue to happen.
So Whitney,
we need to have an approach like, well, what bank should we use that we won't be discriminated against and move our money to that bank? We need action that we can do, not that we need to go to American politicians to get done because there's no will to do it.
Well,
So I want to
point
go
of
ahead, Maria.
clarification,
I'm gonna go ahead. Go
I
ahead,
think,
Maria.
Whitney, you're talking about economic boycotts, right? So I think we need
Yeah.
to be clear on that, because there was a comment made earlier about boycotting your vote. And considering we are not a significant percentage of the population, and we're not a significant, when I say significant in terms of turning an election, right? About with the number of us that vote, the number of people who do vote, right? That's what I'm talking about. Boycotting an election may not do anything, but give
elections to me are kind of here
right.
and
No,
there.
that's why
I'm
I
talking
wanted
about
your point.
You're talking about
That's why I wanted to clarify that you were talking about economic boycott.
do you shop in? You know, what suppliers do you buy from, whether it's cell phones and whatever companies that black dollars go into, we demand that they.
I'm sorry. Didn't Black Mike
Go ahead.
try that experiment buying black only on the show, and it was really difficult. I'm not saying
Well, because black solidarity and black self-interest is the problem.
Exactly.
And that's what I was finna say. Black people problem don't got nothing to do with politics at this point. All the stuff.
We forget how white folk became rich. White folk did not become rich because of their own industry. They became rich because of public policy.
White folks became rich.
Public policy such as the New Deal legislation is what made white folk rich. It was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and black people were excluded from New Deal. We were excluded from it. We did not get the subsidized housing that white folk got.
I agree. I mean, right, the Homeowners Loan Corporation was designed for white people.
And
we did not get Social Security. We did not get.
Isn't that about the time that we switched our political affiliation?
Yes.
No, there's a book called When Welfare Was White.
When affirmative action was white.
When affirmative action was white.
It still is.
By Katz Nelson.
Ira Katz Nelson.
Which talks about, in fact, when President Johnson gave his speech in '65 at Howard University, and he talks about the reason why there is this gap, this economic gap, is because white people have always had, you cannot enslave a people for 246 years from 1619 to 1865, plus another 100 plus years of Jim Crow and Jane Crow, and then wonder why there is such an economic gap between us. White folk were made white. Whiteness is public policy. They get all the advantages.
I agree.
So how much of this election, because they always talk about the browning of America, how much of this election do you think, and maybe not just this one, but the previous one, was about maintaining whiteness in this country?
What has any election not been about maintaining whiteness? So Brother Cosby, I don't think that what you're saying is incorrect, and I don't think that I'd be shocked if anyone on this panel would disagree with you in your thoughts. I think that you and Brother Whitney, differ on is that how do we move forward from this particular intersection? And I think that Brother Whitney is being saying is that because of where we are at currently, that there is not a white organization or a collective white group that will sacrifice their own well-being for the life of people that don't look like them and sharing their experiences. So because of that,
if we could get the black bourgeoisie elitists, if we can get them to reconnect with the black grassroots, because part of the problem is that just like the Evans moved out of the community and left the Jeffersons behind, you have the book Disaggregation, in which you have the author talks about you have four groups of blacks today. You have the super wealthy like Jay-Z, you have black immigrants, you have the aspiring black bourgeoisie, boule class, and you have the masses of blacks who have been left behind. You did not have this disunification back when I was younger. And until we recognize to some degree what Elijah Muhammad was trying to tell us, what the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is trying to tell us, until we can come together and recognizes that ultimately that we are all we got. And one thing we also have to do is, I think this election more than anything proved to us that this quote unquote BIPOC agenda and calling Black and brown and people of color is an illusion. We have to, as Black people who are the descendants of slaves, people who were Jim Crowed and Jane Crowed and lynched and redlined. That is our unique experience. That's not the Browns, and they didn't even come over until 1965 with the Immigration Bill of 1965, until Black people come together and recognize that, just like they have the Black Political Convention of 1972 in Gary, Indiana, we need an all-Black political convention in which Black people come together and set a Black agenda.
So hold on. Go ahead, Henry, and then I want Maurice. Maurice had his hand up, and then Henry. Go ahead. I mean, and Henry, you can counter, and then Maurice.
No, I'm not actually counter. I'm actually agreeing. That's going to happen. But like Brother Whitney said, that would be considered radical, right? And unfortunately, radical Blackness is not something that most Black people are willing to put their neck out for. Because number one, that would require you to be a target. And we've seen what happens, and I think that we've been affected by being what radical Blackness targets, what happened to them. And I think that, and again, I think all of what we're saying here today, we can all be in agreement of that particular issue. But then also, I think that there isn't a realistic solution that can be put in place, that can be formulated and constructed strategically in a way that's going to have a mass effect that all of us as a collective whole can buy into. And I would really stress that there isn't anyone, unfortunately, because of a multitude of psychological reasons, that would want to, again, I think that Black people today are not going to want to jump on the bandwagon, of being collectively marginalized as a whole. All right, they're not going to want to put themselves with everyone else because they're going to believe that everyone doesn't share in the same experiences.
Right. Thank you, Henry. Maurice, I'm sorry.
I think, Maria, you had a question about, do we think this is about preserving white something? Is that the question I heard?
So I asked, because we've been talking about Black and Black agendas, how much of this election, if you listen to Trump's rhetoric, right, and who he appealed to, particularly in the swing states on majority levels, how much of this was really about preserving whiteness? And I say that in the context that that's what the basis of the Civil War was. So
yeah, look, at the end of the day, the last 30, 40 years of relative, I say relative in like quotes, italics, underline, peace between Blacks and whites, if you will, it's just an aberration, right? There's been an unbroken effort to promote white supremacy over Black people in this country. We are back to being a white nationalist country. We've never really taken the steps post Jim Crow to sort of rectify things. If you look at the data, the reason why white men love what Trump was saying, they have fallen behind. Think about this. If you're a white person and all four of your grandparents were born in this country and you only have $55,000 a year in income and you got high school, maybe some college education, you've actually been told that you should be here in the social status, but you're actually here because you've now seen a bunch of people come in and pass you. And so all of this is just backlash, right? So that is the elephant in the room, is that white people are feeling like, especially the working class folks in the middle of the country, they're like, hey, we got to take our country back. I don't know. I don't necessarily care about democracy. If you got to go and take something from that guy and give it to me, so be it. So that's why you got Trump. So
can I speak to that? I mean, you're right. What it is it's the politics of resentment, and Trump is the P.T. Barnum of it. Yeah. So the problem is white Americans are resentful. They're unhappy right now.
Yeah.
As long as white Americans are unhappy, everybody else is going to be unhappy because they're going to give everybody else hell. And that's why I said the underlying issue is economics. It's everything costs too much, from housing to food, and jobs are being eliminated and wages are being reduced. If those three things are happening at the same time, they're creating a system where no one's going to be happy. And that's happening in all industries across America. Right now, Lena Khan is the head of the FTC, the Biden administration, their Federal Trade Commission. And she's in lawsuits right now all over the country with whether it's pork, whether it's batteries, whether it's Ticketmaster. They're suing so many people right now because of monopolies. And what happens with monopolies, the oil companies. They're suing all of these companies right now because they're consolidating and they're taking all the money out of the country. That oil deal that I talked about where they were colluding, it cost American people $200 billion a year in 21, 22, 23. That's where the money is going. So they're going to be unhappy. And if white people are unhappy, then Trump, the ringmaster, is going to play into the you're not happy. So whose fault is it? It's the Mexicans coming over the border. It's the blacks. It's the gays. And that's how you work that game he's working.
Is it not true that in Brooklyn, that one of the largest housing conglomerates, which is the reason why housing costs have gone up so much, is that there's a conglomerate in Brooklyn, New York, that has basically purchased all of the housing.
They've done that all over the United States. Right now in Atlanta, they bought one out of every 4 single-family home in Atlanta is owned by a private equity firm right now.
Right.
They're buying house. They're buying trailer parks.
Right.
They're buying entire trailer parks, raising the rent on these people with their trailers parked in the park, and then denying the services. That's happening that's why I was saying that the problem is that. The problem is economics.
But is it also not true that these same conglomerates are contributing not simply to Trump's campaign, but corporatists are also contributing big campaign donations to the Democrats. So that both parties are being controlled by the corporatists.
That's why I said it's not really a democracy, it's an oligarchy.
Right. So I guess my question, one of the things that we did see is as we pushed people out to vote. What I think a lot of people witnessed was the dwindling power of possibly the Black vote. And how do we start to align ourselves to make ourselves prepared moving forward?
Yeah, I just, the math, right? Look, we're 12% of the electorate.
Exactly.
And, if you think about had we performed the way, if we voted the way that Blacks voted when Biden last won, it would not have made a difference.
15 million folks didn't show up compared to.
And even if you got half of them to show up, it still was going to be a landslide, right? So, and we should allow for Black folks to be diverse in their voting. We should not expect 100% of Black men to vote for Kamala Harris. There are going to be folks who say, I don't want to vote, and that have legitimate reasons. And there are going to be people who's like, you know what, I'm more conservative. The problem is on the other side, right? So I'm glad that it seems like we're off this Black men are not supporting Kamala. Like
that, and that's why I said that myth. We didn't even go there because it was not true.
We're not the problem, right? The problem is outside of us, and it is the corporatists, and it's the fact that you got these disaffected white men that you got to figure out how to keep busy and make them feel good, and you have converged your interests with theirs. Because if you don't, you see what they do.
So Maurice, you're saying basically find the partners, find the allies.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, at the end of the day,
find the allies in this, and I call it a switch of path.
Look, J-Dub made a really good point early on, right? Or just like about 10 minutes ago, where we talked about at the convention, there was nobody really talking about those disaffected folks who were being displaced from the plants in the Midwest. If you talk about that, you address their interests converge with ours, our interests can converge, and you have to create a shared identity. Right now, they've created an identity that's divided us, and it actually plays to, their underlying racism. You got to figure out how to get the interests to converge. At one point, Obama, through great oratory and nothing more, made people feel like they could support him. But when he didn't deliver, they were ripe to be picked off by Trump.
That's right.
So, J. Doug, you want to weigh in?
What was the question one more time? What was the question?
So I kind of lost track of what the question.
The question was, how do we, given the state of the electorate, how do we position ourselves
moving forward
to have our interests as a community addressed?
Yeah, to make sure the young voices got through.
We need to figure out what our interest is, because a lot of stuff as we deal with in the Black community, we could fix ourselves without the politics being involved. A lot of our problems, even if we do vote in a certain way, our problem's still gonna be there regardless of who's in office, because we got community issues and social issues within our community that need to be fixed, which is like the baby mama culture, the violence against each other, the not wanting to work together. All that's gonna be there regardless of who's in office or who we vote for. So we need to figure that out. Then we can see clearly what our political issues is, and then we can join in the right way. You see clearly what our political issues is, and then we can make our decision based on what moves the country in a better direction, far as will that basically trickle down to us, like in healthcare and things like that. But long as we got social issues within our community, we can vote for whoever, and it's just like they say, no matter where you go, there you are. It's still going to be a problem, and it's still going to be the same issues that we think that's going to be fixed via politics. We got other issues that we need to be focused on that we could fix in-house.
Can I ask one quick question? We oftentimes ask, or we get frustrated, like, what have they done for us? They didn't do anything for Black people. But in the same breath, we're saying, hey, we're only 12% of the voting electorate, and we don't really have the economic power to make certain demands. And so in that world, when do we get comfortable with, writing the coattails of other groups, or seeking interest convergence, right? Because it seems like we penalize people for not giving us the Black check, and that's just really, I don't know how realistic that is.
So the whole reparations conversation.
But that's another thing. I'm not talking about reparations.
Or just a regular Black check, just a constant.
So, brother Maurice, when you say that we don't have the economic power to make decisions, I would really push against you.
I wouldn't say make decisions, but to force organizations to
force the hand.
To force them to pay.
Of course we do. Our spending power has the power.
We're the seventh richest nation in regards to our spending power and the amount of dollars in which we spend as a collective community. So are you telling me that we don't affect any industry? There's multitudes of industries that we inherently control based on all the way we spend in it. So whether it's we can do the automobile industry, we can do liquor, we can do tobacco, we can do hair and beauty, we can do music and sports. We have the power that we have to influence economic changes in multitude of different industries. We have plenty of spending power, but what are we putting and investing our money into, and what agendas are those going to affect for the rest of us? As brother J. Doug said, the trickling down to the have-nots, right? Or that lower percentage, or the lower majority percentage. So I think that to say that we don't have the economic strength to make radical changes, I think, is disingenuous to what we are able to accomplish and the amount of spending power we do have.
If I could just respond to that, I want to be careful in what we're suggesting, what's being interpreted. Okay. Look, we spend a lot in hair care. We could say we're not going to spend in hair care. What are the things that are big enough that make a difference for us that we would be willing to give up spending on hair care to get, right? We don't want a black college president to be fired. What is big enough that we have to use as leverage to stop that from happening, right? That's the question. And then I think when we think about I think you make is a distinction that we have to be careful with. Consuming and producing are two different things.
Absolutely.
And we're doing a lot of consuming of basic things that you can't get away from not spending money on. It becomes a real challenge to withhold enough to make impact on the folks.
I disagree with that like 100%. You could pick any product and say, pick any random product and say iPhones. We're not buying iPhones. We're all going to buy Android. Do you know the massive economic effect of black people not buying an iPhone? That's tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. So the idea that doesn't have impact, I think, is completely false.
I think that what my brother is saying is that there's a difference. There's a difference between spending power and wealth.
Yeah, but spending power is still power. But like I live in Philadelphia, right? In Philadelphia, you have different supermarkets. You have Acme supermarkets, you have ShopRite supermarkets, you have Fresh Grocery supermarkets. So you telling me if black people said, all right, we're no longer going to shop at Acme, or we're no longer shop at ShopRite, and cause them millions of dollars of losses, that wouldn't have economic impact for them to say, all right, well, maybe we need to hire a black manager. Maybe we need to hire a black supervisor or black. I completely disagree with that. I think we have more than enough power to do that. I feel
like if something like that happened, some of these stores will flourish more because black people be doing so much stealing and stuff. And a lot of these stores, when black people say they not gonna shop there, that's why you got all these like Whole Foods and all these like specialty grocery stores. That's when white people gonna flood the doors.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to down that junk anyway.
Marvin, and then go ahead.
I mean, but I'm saying is that there is, I'm not an economist, okay? So I know that there is a great debate that is taking place in the black community. One is William Darity at Duke, and the other is, of course, would be somebody like Boyce Watkins, who would say that the boycott and more selective spending and turning dollars within our community. And I agree. I'm not saying that we should not do that. But what Darity is saying is that the gap that exists, the economic gap that exists between blacks and whites, is so mammoth that it's going to take the federal government, as the federal government position whites to have wealth.
That's never going to happen, though.
Never.
And we will never close the gap.
That's like looking for the tooth fairy. My point is, do what you can do, not what I get it. That might be ideal, but that's never going to happen. So I say, well, what can we actually do ourselves? So if we started directing our spending, then we could make demands.
Then we're stuck, man, because I don't think if based on the data, and we don't have the agency to close the gap. In fact, we're talking about zero wealth for black people. I'm not talking about income. I'm talking about wealth. Zero wealth for black people, maybe in the next 20 years.
So, brother Cosby, when you say zero wealth for black people, there's been zero wealth for black people since the dawn of slavery. If we're talking about the percentage of black wealth creation, right? So to say that if we do things differently in the next 20 years, we're going to get a different outcome. If 300 years hasn't shown you that white people don't give a fuck about black people and their wealth, then the idea of trying to follow suit in their paths is never going to be the solution. I mean, that I would think that would be disingenuous to everything that was trying to be accomplished over the past 100 years of trying to instead of integrate, right, in trying to divulge segregation. I think that we needed to identify that we never, even though we don't have essentially the four cornerstones of successful community, which is, like you said earlier, education, health and wealth care, food resource and produce, and a political structure in place to make sure that money flows in and out. If we don't have those cornerstones of community, we're never going to be able to flourish. But however, we do have the spending and the dollar amounts to create those type of things, to create our own community that would allow us to have the wealth, because that wealth that we would have would be able to create a structure in place that would have money generate within our own communities multitude of time. That's why wealth is easier to create amongst white communities, Jewish communities, Asian communities, because that money is circulating at a higher pace amongst multiple families. But let me
say this: I am a wealth creator, okay, and a job creator. I'm the leader of two institutions that have created more jobs for anybody, any Black person in the entire state of Kentucky. Okay, so I create jobs for over 300 Black people in the Black community. Okay, I'm the president of a historical Black college and university, the only HBCU in American history to make a comeback. Plus, I'm the pastor of the largest Black church in the state of Kentucky.
Did you get some money from Trump?
We got a Black agenda.
Did you get some money from Trump for the HBCU?
And I am telling you that it's going to take, and part of the problem is that this coalitions that we have built with other groups needs to be disaggregated. We as Black people who are descendants of slaves, I'm a part of the ADOS movement. I strongly believe in what Yvette Carnell and ADOS and is talking about, the need to disaggregate Blackness and to have a Black agenda and make justice claims that are exclusive to those who can trace their lineage back to enslavement. And I think that we have never done that. And I think that, until if they can make Native Americans whole, and they get something every year, if they can make the Japanese whole, Reagan made the Japanese whole. We've never put together a Black agenda that in which the cornerstone of it is, and to quote Yvette Carnell, reparations and a transformative Black agenda. And that is the federal government. Dr. At Duke University, I mentioned him.
Darity.
William Darity says it is only the federal government that is in a position to make Black people whole the same way the federal government made white people whole.
It's never going to happen. I
I
agree with you 100%.
So
I actually know personally Yvette Carnell. I'm all for ADOS. I'm actually more of a Tariq Nasheed FBA kind of guy. But I'm for Black solidarity. 100%, and I agree with you on that. We need to separate from this people of color thing because it's a bunch of BS. We don't really have any allies. I don't believe in any of that. Hispanics just showed you that in the election. They're not our allies. The Black and brown thing is phony. But I would say that the reparations argument, which is obviously a valid argument, I just don't think they're ever going to pay it. They're never going to give us reparations. Never.
Yeah, that's I think we have to get away from this idea of trying to be white and trying to get people to fix their mistakes. They won't even own up to it. Like I come from whiteness in my own family, and I can promise you that white fragility is never going to shake either way on that side of the spectrum. So the idea of trying to buy into this ideology of whiteness that's going to be our saving white hope is not going to be a thing. Like, I think that our only solution because we're people of African descent are the only people who know exactly what our problems are and do very little to nothing to fix it.
So there was a question. I'm sorry, Henry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish, and then I'll point to the question in the chat.
I think what I was going to say, everybody already knew. But
okay, there was a question in the chat. Well, not in the chat, that popped up on the screen. A comment or a question that was talking about how then if we can't even agree now in these conversations on things, how do we agree on a Black agenda? And I'm paraphrasing. How do we agree on a Black agenda to move forward?
You probably won't. I'm gonna go with the pastor down here and say, because I've related this to people a million times. The word says narrow is the path, right? Wide is the road that leads to destruction. Narrow is the path, and I have no illusions that most people are going to travel that narrow path. Never had, never did. Mm-hmm. I don't think that this world is set up for the group to succeed as a group. I don't think it works like that.
Mm-mm.
So let's look. Mm-hmm. The Black agenda. I think just some simple goals. Like, this man is about to be in power, right? He's elected. It's done. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we come? What is it? January 20th, 21st? I don't know when the inauguration is. What?
Well, it's certified around January
6th, ain't it?
January 6th.
Yep.
Or 5th. No, actually, it is the 6th this year. Where do we go? Like, how do we prepare ourselves? Even if it's just 3 simple goals, like, where do we start?
Well, let me say this. When Trump was in office the first time, Black people got mad when other Black people went to talk to Trump. And I thought that was ridiculous, because if he's the head of empire, you got to go talk to the head of empire. Whoever's in charge, whoever's controlling the purse strings, you got to talk to him. Yeah, so taking that position that because he's Trump and we hate him, we can't talk to him. That's the first thing you got to kill that. If he's in charge and he has the purse strings, you got to go talk.
Yeah, we got to grow up, because Joe Biden, when he got in office, he said, I ain't going to talk to you until y'all put me in office. Then we going to talk. And then he didn't talk to you after that. So don't act like you got to talk so much. I think that after, like he said, we got to be mature. We got to go to Trump, because Trump like Black people. He sit there, he listen to Black people all the time. We go to Trump with a plan, a business plan, not no emotional plan, not talk about acknowledge me. Go with a plan that's going to make return on investment. You go to him like a businessman, and then he gonna hear you out. But if you go begging with your hand out trying to get more freebies, you might get turned around. I'm not gonna lie.
So I want to say one thing. Trump does not like Black people. He likes Black people as much as he likes poor people, right? Him sitting down with Black people was a political move.
Did Joe Biden like Black people all them years he was running?
I'm not saying he did either. I'm not saying
then. So he like Black people enough. He ain't got to kiss your ass. He like you enough to sit down and see if he could make some money with you, Don King, Mike Tyson. Trump is a businessman. If he can make some money with you, he gonna sit and talk with you. Now, if you go with him like, yo, give me a freebie because I'm Black, feel sorry for me. No, he may not feel sorry for you just on the basis of you being Black.
Let's be clear. Black people, Black celebrities that are not really super successful, right? He likes the guys like Lawrence Taylor and Mike Tyson who've like been through bankruptcies and all that.
Okay, so that's different.
Successful Black people.
He likes Mike Tyson. He doesn't like Black people. He likes Mike Tyson, right? And there can be a difference. There is. He
likes the celebrity of Blackness. He likes the celebrity. He likes celebrity that he's so aligned with. It's wealth, or the appearance of wealth.
Can we get back to the question though of essentially
where do we
real quick here, let's finish it. Trump like money. Trump like business. Yes. If you go to him, no matter what color you are, and your ideas and your plan and your pitch is going to make a return on an investment, and it's going to be listen.
Being the president is not like the apprentice. It's not the apprentice.
You don't let me finish. Come on, bro.
Go ahead.
He's the president, not the head of the Apprentice TV show.
But this is what I'm saying. America is a business. Trump is not going to do anything that's not going to be beneficial for America. So if you come to him saying do something for me because I'm Black, and that's not going to benefit nobody other than some more free handouts, and they're going to put us further in debt. He may not go for that just off the basis of you being black. He may not feel sorry for your black plight. Okay, but I suggest, if you said what we're going to do moving forward now that he's in office, I'm just giving you some. If I'm saying go to him with a plan that's going to make a return on an investment that's going to be beneficial to the country as a whole, and then you're going to see some results. But if you go just begging,
the United States government is a non-profit. I hate to break that to you. Being the president isn't running a business and meeting people to figure out what the ROI is.
The question that was asked was, how, as Black people, do we set an agenda to move forward? Not how do we move forward necessarily with Trump. We were talking about setting a Black agenda for Black people.
But Maria, I think Whitney was giving he's like, we do have to work with Trump. So that was his.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we have to work. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So let's correct it. Maurice, Lord Jesus, what do you think is next?
Go. You guys carry on. I'm good.
Maurice, you done?
He's like, I'm done.
I will go. I'm really curious to hearing about what Brother J. Doug has to say, honestly. But I will say, number one thing that we need to focus, that needs to be our point of emphasis, is correcting the Black family. I think the amount of money that is lost within our community through the deconstruction of the Black family, whether it's through Black loyalty to Black women amongst our Black men, or whether it's the destabilization of Black economics through the destruction of the Black family, whether it's destabilization of the Black children and their ability to have the access to wealth, education, healthcare, etc. I think it's something that we're not putting a big enough emphasis on in our communities. What brother J. Doug said earlier, right? This ideology of single mother parenting, right, has to be a huge point of emphasis. We have to correct this mistake. I think is one of the biggest injustices and is the destabilization. I think one thing that white supremacy has shown us is that they have identified that if we can continue to destroy the Black family, and if we talk about what has changed since the 1960s to right now, that would be the number one indicator we can all identify with, is that the destabilization of the Black family and the destruction of the Black home and Black woman has then has been condensed now to what we're seeing now, as we're not seeing the creation of a Black power. We're seeing that Black power struggle within the family itself, but then also we're seeing the political struggle that we're facing now, because if we look at who was the initial organizers of Black agendas in the past, was the Black woman and within the Black family itself. So I think that we can't correct the Black family, and we can't stay loyal and create black children and Black women, then we're never going to be able to create anything else within our community.
Church.
Okay. Now, before I fully tap out, I think Brother Henry raises a great point.
I've been said that.
So, but to get there, right? Look, at the end of the day, in this country,
don't do that. Go ahead, Maurice.
I missed what.
No. I want you to continue. I don't want folks talking over people. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, no. So, okay. Look, marriage rates and family formation rates are 100% correlated with your wealth level and your income level. We know in this country the biggest creator of wealth has been home ownership. If we want to help Black families form and stay together, we have to help them create wealth. And if home ownership is the best way to help them create wealth and feel stable, we need a home ownership agenda with the government. We know that the cost of housing is really, really high. And so I think that is something that's really tangible, really narrow, that we could bring to the administration to say, hey, we need to do something about Black home ownership, because we know from that other good things follow.
The problem with that is, how do you do that with declining employment and underemployment and low and falling wages.
Right.
It's easier with two incomes.
It is.
And like Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, create your own job.
Yeah. Look,
Jacob,
the government to subsidize and to help on something. If you had to ask them to help on one thing to help address the Black family, I would say homeownership would be that thing where assistance would help with wealth creation, which would then make families a little bit more stable, because once you have stable housing, you have wealth that you can borrow against, you can build on.
The problem with that then is you still are dealing with the banks that have a history of discrimination.
Again,
they're still discriminating in the loan areas and banks.
I mean,
right. But again, we're trying to figure out some solutions.
Right. If you said, what's the agenda? What do we want?
Can I interject this?
We're saying home ownership. That's what I would say.
Yes.
And that's what the government with.
Yes. Can I interject this? And I would affirm and everything. In fact, I would affirm 99% of everything that everyone has said during this discussion. But I think that I would affirm the need for home ownership, the importance of family formation. I think that there is something that is even more fundamental when you talk about a Black agenda. I think that something just that's rudimentary is asking and answering the question, what constitutes being Black? Because Blackness has been conflated as a result of West Africans and Caribbeans coming to the country. You know, is Blackness based on skin color, or is Blackness based on lineage? And I think that we have got to disaggregate Blackness and become an exceptional category, because that's what we are. We're an exceptional people. Dr. Claude Anderson, in his Powernomics, talks about the need for Black exceptionalism. And as long as we continue to conflate Blackness with these other groups, I think that that's going to hurt us. I think, what is Blackness?
I want to be clear on what you're suggesting. So you're suggesting like a Black person who's here and a citizen, but has Caribbean ancestry, right? You're saying that they should be treated differently.
I'm saying that we have a unique justice claim, to quote Yvette Cornell. We have a unique justice claim as descendants of enslaved people. So, for example, if you're from Haiti and you come to this country, you should receive reparations, but you should receive it from the French. Or if you come, say, from the Congo, maybe you receive it from Belgium. But those of us who can trace our lineage back to slavery, I think that we have to form a unique group and then present our own justice claims. For example, if you're talking about special housing or subsidized housing for Blacks, well, who is Black? Because a whole lot of people are trying to shoehorn themselves into the Black experience, and they just got here.
Brother Cosby,
I thought being Black would rather not if you wash your collard greens in the tub.
I love it.
All right. So Brother Cosby, I do want to address what you said, and I think that when we identify quote unquote Blackness, and I don't really like using that term, loosely, I would say, but I would say that there's two things that should be identifying markers. You have to be psychologically Black, and as well as biologically Black. And what I mean by that is that can you have as you stated, can you trace your lineage back to Black African ancestry, right? Are you?
You know what, gentlemen? I'm sorry. I feel like this is not helping us in a way, and I this is just how I'm going to actually agree, because I feel like this is the division to me, and I understand what we're talking about when we talk about where did we land. Yeah. And so on and so forth. But I feel like it has worked against us so much that it continues to put us back in the exact same place of where we are today.
Yep. It's too divisive. We already got that many numbers.
Well, all right. Let me say this.
And so let me say this. The one thing that I do agree with you, Henry, on is the development of Black love in our relationships and our families.
Mm-hmm.
That is the breakdown of our structure. Whether you are Caribbean from Haiti, and I guess being from Louisville, Kentucky, and living majority of my life up here, we have to understand how we see ourselves in each other, because we are too busy trying to figure out where we were dropped off instead of connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as a vote, as Black people, and they don't care where you are from. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who is British who ended up going and got under the jail because of his Blackness. So I as brothers, it comes back down to, again, us tearing each other in a way that's just not helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say this. As far as a reparations conversation, Brother Cosby is exactly right. Reparations, if you're having that conversation, needs delineation. I agree 1,000%. So we can move on from that. But I'm saying he's right in that conversation.
You don't know.
I was not talking about in terms of a transformative Black agenda for all Blacks. I'm saying that we need a transformative agenda for all Blacks, whether you're a Black from the West Africa, or whether you're from Haiti or any of the Caribbean countries. I believe in a transformative Black agenda for all melanated people. But I'm talking specifically at this point about repair from the federal government. And if you're talking about repair from the federal government, because they have outlawed race, one thing that Ketanji Brown Jackson was advancing, which she asked the question when they had the hearing. She said, okay, race cannot be a factor. She said, but what about lineage? And that is what was happening in California. California almost pushed through a reparations bill. Now, it got undermined, but they came very close to pushing together, and it was based on lineage. And that was not to say that Blacks who have come over to here recently should not be a part of a Black agenda. They should. But the difference between Blacks who chose to come over here under their own free will and Blacks who were brought over here against their will to serve as the foundation for America's economy have two different claims. That's all I'm saying.
I agree, my brother. I agree. I understand, Kevin, what you're talking about, but I just feel like I think one of the issues that I'm constantly hearing is, how do we become allies amongst ourselves? Like, I don't necessarily know if we are allies for each other, whether we are from the Caribbean, whether we are from here, whether our lineage is from here, so on and so forth. So, because I feel like it does become a collective argument around reparations. But the tangible things that I think that we can work on, that is the conversation. And then it becomes a bigger conversation because we understand the true value of who we are collectively.
But the reason I was bringing it up, Natalie, is because, take, for example, if we talk about FBA loans, and that we're making a claim that because of the damage that was done to Black people, that we should get a certain percentage of FBA loans, or we should, in terms of tuition money to go to HBCUs, the federal government is going to ask the question, okay, who specifically are the people who should receive these type of appropriations? And I think we're going to have to come to that conclusion. Now, in California, they came to the conclusion that it was those who could trace their lineage back to enslavement. So that whole
we're getting kicked off. Yes. But I feel like this is going to be a part 2 conversation on other things. But
let's do it,
Kevin, really quickly, because I do want to kind of I feel like everybody's kind of given their last word, and I feel like you said it is preparation starting there, but I know that's not going to be our first approach. So what would be your first point for communities as a leader in your community?
I think that we need to understand that if we're talking about that yesterday taught us that politics is an exchange, and that we should try to get something for our vote. And I also think that if we have got to create, and you alluded to it, more solidarity between the grass tops and the grassroots. And I think that we have suffered to a great degree because the Black professional class has in many ways distanced themselves from the Black poor. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes the Black boule class can be just as hard on Black poor people as white supremacists. That we do have a serious class issue. I'm sorry to dominate the.
It's okay. It's okay. This was a lot. And I feel like there was a lot of emotion and everything else that went with this. I feel like we have a lot more, like I said, is day 2 or day 1 of us finding out that there is a major power shift in so many ways, as Whitney said, monopolies, and so on and so forth. And I really do believe, like, how do we start to prepare ourselves? And not only just for the next 4 years, but beyond.
It's the same with the thing we've been doing for the past 200. It ain't gonna be no different.
It ain't gonna be no different. You're right. But I feel like we ain't always been. Have we always been strategic about it? I feel like we've lost our strategy around it.
That's been no different.
Okay, and there's that. We're gonna take this to the after party. Y'all can join us. Thank you, gentlemen. This was everything. I appreciate you, especially my brother who came in last minute. I literally called him. I was like, "Do you want to get on this call?" So this is his first time. I appreciate you, J-Dub. You know what? I'm gonna give you kudos because you held your own, brother, and you are probably one of the youngest brothers. And I love the fact that you felt free to speak your voice. And even though there were very strong personalities on here, I want to commend you, and you are welcome back anytime.
I appreciate y'all for having me, and salute everybody on the panel.
Henry. Thank you, Maurice, our Black man from Brooklyn, and of course, Whitney Thomas. Lord have mercy. Thank you so much, brother man. And Lady Maria, you were the best co-host. You held it down. You really kept them in line. So thank you. See y'all later. We will be back next week. Thank you, gentlemen. We are back on. And
one last comment. For those who didn't know, Monday was Black Solidarity Day. Something a lot of people overlook and forget. It's always the Monday before Election Day.
It's a very Brooklyn holiday.
Black Power.
Black Power. Oh, also we have a meetup in Brooklyn. So if y'all want to go bowling, hit us up.
But Natalie's
on the after party. Yes, see us in the after party. Thank you, everyone. Great show, gentlemen. I appreciate you.
Good meeting you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Peace.